Hello, everybody. Excited Utterance here. My name is Hella, and it is a very special Hearsay for Days, and we are recapping the Apple River stabbing trial. Everyone had their eyes glued to that trial, didn't they? What's going on? Let's make sure. Am I live? Am I live? Oh, yes, I am absolutely live. Live on YouTube, on Twitter, on Rumble, on Twitch, on Facebook. Is there anywhere else I can be live? Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, Twitch. Oh, yeah, X is called Twitter. Sorry, I'm just looking at them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Let's see. Here we go. Oh, not OnlyFans. That's a different stream, darling. That's a different stream. It's only feet, not only fans, only feet. What a trial! I didn't know about it till it started. Yeah, I think most of us didn't. It just caught us all by surprise, didn't it, TYO Choice? It just was like, what's this thing, and what's all this crazy testimony that's coming out? And a lot of the streamers were just like doing catch up, trying to get up to being live or being live as it is. And then, yeah, everyone was just like, whoa, what is going on? Now that it's over, I think actually the most crazy part of it happened at the end. And we're going to talk a fair bit about that today. Bronca thought it looked boring on day one. He changed his mind. He sure changed his mind about that. Hello, greedy bloke. Salutations to you. Salutations to you. And great, I was hoping to hear Solomon's thoughts. Yes, now, for those of you who aren't aware who Solomon is, and there will be people watching today, if not live later on, who don't know who Solomon is. Solomon Anderson is the brother of Zachariah Anderson. Zachariah Anderson was convicted wrongfully, and I will say that very, very confidently, that he was wrongfully convicted in Wisconsin 1 year ago of the unaliving, or I think I can get away with saying murder, intentional homicide of a man called Rosalio Gutierrez, and hiding the corpse of that man, even though he had never met that man, was nowhere near the crime scene, and the facts just did not add up whatsoever. There was much prosecutorial misconduct involved. So he has had firsthand dealings with the Wisconsin court system, and he just lives in Wisconsin and has much to say about this particular trial. So he'll be here shortly, and I've just seen that Andrew Branca has turned up in the backstage as well. So we're going to get going in a moment. Hello, Schnibbles. Hi, Schnibbles. Good to see you. Welcome, everybody, as you're all filing in. Okay, great. Let us bring in everybody else. So, excuse me. Hey.
Hey.
Hello, welcome. Hi, Dali, and hello, Mr. Branca. How are you?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
Can hear you fine. Good to see you. Hi, Cece. Hi, Christine. Okay, so Mr. Branca, I'm so pleased you could be here today. You, as I said to you and in messages, I watched quite a few people's wrap up of the verdict, and yours I found it to be the most succinct in the way that you explained what happened with that the lesser charges, and the lesser charges. I know they're technically lesser charges. However, he doesn't necessarily get off that lightly, does he?
No, it's life in prison. I mean, it's a minimum of, well, I mean, he's subject to 30 some years for the reckless homicide, and he's a 54-year-old man. So,
yeah. Exactly.
And the judge will sentence him to the max on every one of these. Once you're convicted by the jury's decided this was not self-defense. And if this was not self-defense, then it was just a grievous set of stabbings, right? Why wouldn't the judge sentence him to the max? I mean, he carved up a bunch of people, killed one. So yeah, he's going to prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah, exactly. And you called it an ambush, didn't you?
I mean, it isn't really, but it feels that way, right? So they have a set of charges they're arguing throughout the whole trial. It's what they talked about in their opening statements, that this was an intentional homicide, 1 count for the death, and 4 counts of intentional endangerment. And then they do their closing arguments, talking about those charges. And then after closing, they get to what they call the charging conference, where they finalize the jury instructions. And the state says, hey, we'd also like a bunch of jury instructions on reckless homicide and reckless endangerment. And that has never been argued during the trial. The jury's never heard this before. They didn't hear about it in closing arguments.
Wait,
the trouble for the defense is that as a lawyer, you know what the lesser included charges are. And you know they're subject to be added at any time up to the charging conference. So you're aware that they're on the radar. So it's not an ambush in the sense that the defense wasn't aware of the risk of this happening. They have to be. They certainly strike me as extremely competent defense attorneys.
Absolutely.
And it's always the case that the prosecution can ask for lesser included. And if they're supported by the evidence, the judge will add them. Now, I would argue that recklessness is not supported by this evidence, and the judge should not have allowed these lesser included, because there's zero evidence of reckless conduct here. There's a lot of evidence of intentional conduct. He stabbed everybody intentionally. He wasn't blindly waving the knife around and randomly stabbing people. Every person he stabbed had put hands on him. So if I were the judge, I would have said, well, so the difference, of course, is when you intentionally stab someone, it's a deliberate act. You're trying to stick a knife into that person. When you recklessly stab someone, you're not trying to do it intentionally, but you're acting in such a way that you're creating an unjustified risk that it could happen, and you're ignoring that risk. So just waving the knife around wildly, for example, in a crowd of people, you don't really know who you're stabbing, who you're not stabbing. That could be characterized as reckless, but that's not what happened here. There's no evidence to support that. And unfortunately, when you have the intentional charges and then you have an acquittal on self-defense, those are the two ends of the spectrum. It's likely that you'll have jurors who are split and can't agree, and they'll argue with each other, and the verdict has to be unanimous. They know that, or it's going to be a new trial. And then when you get these recklessness charges, which are a lesser degree of mens rea, of mental requirement, you create an environment that's ripe for a compromise verdict, where some jurors say, well, I think he should be acquitted. And the other jurors said, well, listen, he stabbed a bunch of people. We can't just let him walk out of here with nothing. So let's compromise on reckless homicide and reckless endangerment, and we all get to go home, even when there's no evidence to support that actual conviction.
Yes. Sure. Well, and that's the thing. So basically, what you're saying is the jury should have had to decide between whether he was intentionally doing this, intentionally harming these people, or not.
The only real question was it self-defense? Because no one was denying he intentionally stabbed these people, right? He's not saying it wasn't me, someone else did it. He's saying, I stabbed them. I stabbed every one of those people.
Intentionally did it.
I intentionally stabbed them. So the only question is, and then he said, and I justify that as self-defense. Well, once he does that, the burden is on the state to disprove self-defense beyond any reasonable doubt, which, listen, I watched every minute of the trial. I saw all the evidence. I heard all the arguments. There's no way in my mind that a rational jury comes back after a couple of hours of deliberations and, based on the law and facts, concludes that self-defense was disproven beyond any rational doubt, any reasonable doubt. That's impossible on this law and facts. What can happen is a jury can say, man, those injuries were really grievous, and some of them really were. And we're really uncomfortable with that. And that was, 5 young people from our community. Our kids go to school with their kids. Our parents go to the same soccer games. We know each other. And who's this Romanian guy?
Yeah.
That did this. And then they'll do what emotive people always do, is they'll look for reasons, look for a rationalization to come to the conclusion that they're emotionally comfortable with, right? So they'll say, well, you know, it was reckless of him to approach those boys in the first place. That sounds like recklessness. Or it was reckless of him not to walk away when it first became apparent that it was not going to be a pleasant interaction. The trouble with that is that's not how recklessness works in the law. If you're going to find someone guilty of a reckless crime, the recklessness has to be the act that is the crime. And I'll illustrate this with a... So imagine somebody, imagine recklessness with a gun. Someone is in a shopping mall, crowded shopping mall, and some dude threatens them with a knife. Give me all your money. And the person who's threatened has a concealed carry pistol, like you're allowed to do in America. And he pulls out his gun, and then he closes his eyes, and he just empties the gun in the middle of that crowded mall. And he doesn't really know where those bullets are going or who they're hitting. You're certainly not making any apparent effort to focus his defensive use of force on the guy with the gun. I would argue that's a reckless use of a firearm, right? Now, imagine he didn't do that. Imagine he shoots responsibly, fires one bullet, it hits the guy with the knife, but goes through that guy, as bullets sometimes do, and hits an innocent bystander. Was that a reckless use of a gun? I would say no. But what a prosecutor might say, he might say, well, we looked at his car, and his cars, the tires didn't have enough tread on them to be lawful. And it was snowing that day. So when he drove to the mall with those bad tires in the snow, that was reckless driving. And because that was reckless driving, you should find the death of the bystander to be reckless homicide. So when they say he could have walked away, when they say he didn't have to snorkel near the kids, when they say his friend who lost the phone said he didn't need him to bother looking for the phone, they're trying to cast a net of recklessness that may be applicable to those acts unrelated to his use of force, and cast that net wide enough so the jury thinks it encompasses the use of force. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Yeah. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't.
It doesn't make sense in terms of his use of force. No, you're right.
And that's why the prosecutor talks about things like, well, the guy who lost his phone, he didn't care about the phone. He had insurance on it. What does that have to do with any of the actual criminal charges in this case?
His
Nothing.
state of mind.
But it goes to this notion that he was reckless looking for a phone that even the owner of the phone didn't care about, and therefore that should make the stabbings reckless.
Absolutely. Solomon is just having a bit of trouble getting baby Emmerich to sleep. So that's for the little guy. Is it around this time of day? Bubs at this time of day tend to get, they call it the witching hour. I don't know if you guys have that term in America, but we call it here. I know when my little girl was that age, she would act up at this time of day, not want to go to have a little nap. So Solomon, don't stress yourself. If you can get in here, that's great. If not, stay and chat if you can. That'd be awesome. Solomon did have a question for you though, Andrew, and that is, what's this back here? I just find it. I know juries have historically been unpredictable, but do you think that juries have gotten more irrational? What do you think, Andrew?
Well, I think they're more subject to propaganda than they used to be, because now media is everywhere, right? It's social media now. It's not one newspaper at 5 o'clock in the evening. That's or the morning that's delivered to your home. You're swimming in those waters continuously, right? We're all walking around with the brainwashing machine, right, in our pocket, and it's pinging constantly. And they had 2 years to propagandize this case. And I don't live there, so I didn't see the local media, but I'm told by people who live there that every news story about this event was some crazy old man stabbed a bunch of young people on the river. I mean, when I was first asked if I was going to cover this trial just a couple weeks ago, I was like, I don't know. I saw some brief news report about it, and it sounds like some crazy old man stabbed a bunch of kids in the river. But that's a very superficial take, because I hadn't actually looked at any of the evidence, so I'm open to persuasion. And I started watching the trial, and I was immediately persuaded. I mean, once you see that video in its entirety, not just selected, screen captures out of it, it's. I'm not drunk. I just got back from church. Once you see the actual video, there's absolute evidence. I mean, he was not the first person to use physical force. They laid hands on him first. He was wildly outnumbered. That they were very violent with him in an environment, 15 inches of water in a river, in which easily 3 or 4 of those people would have overwhelmed him and drowned him if that's what they were intending to do. And he was being attacked from all directions. there's no way you're going to defend yourself against even 2 young men in a river who want to cause you harm, much less 13 other people, unless you resort to a weapon in self-defense.
Yeah.
Thank you, potentially criminal raid. Sean, I sent you a link if you are interested and free. Anyway,
but to get to Solomon's point, if people are propagandized for 2 years, and that's your jury pool, no, you can't get an unbiased jury. It's impossible.
Wow. It's shocking. I mean, that's the thing. People hear so much stuff about these things. Okay, let's get into it, guys. And welcome, potentially criminal raid. And thank you, Sean, for that. It's really nice to see you all. Welcome. All right, let's get into it, guys. Okay, so, oh dear. Of course, we will say hi to TYO Toys and just do our little wrap up for the week, just to, brighten things up.
Recording started.
The young people were cackling like hyenas.
Everything is fucked, guys.
Is it you?
People in Miami are nuts. And then he's got like this dried milk on the beer. I feel like he's appropriating my culture.
Break out the swabs.
I said, bro, he's got a knife. I said,
I was poking the tiger with a stick, and all of a sudden he attacked me, and he attacked these kids.
That was great.
I was told that one or more of you may be watching the trial while you're sitting in the hallway.
Eat a moon pie.
that was the look on your face at the time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Quit murdering people.
Hey, let's just do this for no reason whatsoever. Do you know where your children are? Dealing with Sting is the best doing. But let me see. Oh yeah.
You can have a conversation about that later.
Why can't we just have a good pursuit?
By weed, you mean marijuana?
Yes, please.
Or, yes. Right. Yes, OJ died.
I think we need more intro.
Oh shit. Shoot.
The whole Chad Daybell trial thing is bad. You can't even see anybody and you can barely hear them.
I don't know how long I'm going to be covering this Karen Reed case.
Oh, twat. Judge Glanville shouldn't practice law at all because he has no spine.
I've got a theory.
It makes him look super sinister.
What
this
a
looks
great that photographer.
Yeah, I mean the framing of this and the this is really I'm just imagining how much difficulty it took to position that and to get it just the right thing, to focus, the right focus.
Well done, Phil. TYO Toys. I think everyone starts to look forward to your clip compilations every week, and they are an excellent intro or outro, wherever I decide to put them into Hearsay for Days. So thank you very much, and thank you for being in all of our chats. Okay, now let's get going. So, welcome to Wisconsin. Enter at own risk of prosecution and inevitable conviction. Enjoy your stay. That's the new advertising campaign for adventures in Wisconsin. It seems like, dear me, I watch too many trials in Wisconsin that just end up a big mess. I think Rittenhouse was probably the only one that was a surprise. But geez, and it's if Solomon does end up on panel today, he can attest to that one. That was just a cluster F. You're only halfway through that trial, Bronca, but you've
not even like
it gets
4
a lot
days
worse.
in.
Yeah, I mean, I know you've made a lot of notes and you've put up some videos out there already, but that one, goodness me, that was just hell. Look, and really, I mean, this trial, it's...
And this trial didn't need jury nullification. this trial with Nicolae Miu. In fact, it was the opposite of jury nullification. It was finding him guilty when the law and evidence did not warrant a guilty verdict. Jury nullification is the opposite, right? Where the law and evidence would warrant a guilty verdict, but you decide as a juror, I don't like the law, or for whatever reason, I'm going to nullify that guilty verdict. This was actually the reverse of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's keep going. Right. Okay, so Lillian London, thank you, Lillian London, for giving me the permission to use your name and your Twitter handle. I actually use her tweets a fair bit. She's a great conversation starter on X. So would you like to speak on her behalf, Mr. Daly?
Watch closely. Nicolae Miu did not go towards him and stabbed him. He was holding a knife, and Isaac Schuman basically jumped into the knife.
Okay, before we keep going, I really want to play this because we were playing this in our Discord the other day over and over again, and it really surprised me. So let's have a look. Boom. Okay, let's have another look.
Yeah, that wasn't Isaac Schuman. That was that was AJ Martin, the kid who was disemboweled. But Isaac Schuman's action was very much the same, lunging at him, hands going for the neck.
Oh yeah.
Boom. There it is.
There that's AJ Martin.
That's AJ Martin.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the problems with this defense, it's not a legal problem per se. The law says once you're privileged to use deadly force, you're privileged to use deadly force. It doesn't really care how much or how intense the deadly force is. Doesn't care about the specific manner or tool of deadly force. But one thing that had to influence these juries was how grotesque some of these injuries were. And knives cause these kinds of injuries. Now, there are ways to use a knife in self-defense where you're causing much smaller but more effective disabling injuries. You're cutting tendons, you're disabling the person's ability to fight, but you're not cutting their belly open and having their guts spill out into a river. That's hard for a jury to get over.
Yeah.
It's a sorry. Hi.
Hello, welcome, Sean.
Yeah. To the normies on that jury, this was a brutal, violent attack. I mean, this is exactly. People are just getting bleeding and screaming everywhere. This is, I would argue, for a lot of people, this is on a level of visceral discomfort, like far above even what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse, because knives are, if it's bloody and gory, it catches their attention.
And by the way, this is a little folding pocket knife of the kind many of us just carry every day. I mean, I have this up to my pocket every day. It's basically the same knife. And those are the kind of injuries even a small blade can cause. By the way, I would say, for those of you who are self-defense minded, this is useful video for you if you're ever threatened with a knife and have to defend yourself against even a little folding knife, because now you're aware these are the kind of injuries that can result.
Yeah.
These are the common, like, most stabbings are with these little knives. Most guys trying to rob people don't carry a butcher knife. They carry, a folding knife. So.
Even when Runkle is pissed, he's still nice. That's true. All right. Do you want to read the rest there, Dolly?
Yeah.
Assailant.
Assailant was unarmed. Doesn't always matter.
No. Assailant as in this guy here.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to be armed to strangle someone, beat someone to death, etc. He pushed him after he stabbed a girl, FYI. False. Whatever you say, Dwight. I heard someone got stabbed and I got the description. This guy denied stabbing them. Like, come on, dog. This dude wanted to stab some MFs. That's why he was smiling and only walked back to this group after stabbing. Isaac Schuman attached Miu after this and died because of his own actions.
Okay. Righto.
So, of course, part of that is mind reading, right? Oh, he just wanted to stab people. This guy who was a mechanical engineer, 52 years old, never even had a speeding ticket in his life, suddenly lost his mind on the river, just decided to want to stab a bunch of people. That's obviously just nonsensical mind reading. The dissembling to the police, the lying to the police afterwards, could in many cases have been totally destructive to any claim of self-defense, right? Because oftentimes self-defense claims are basically he said cases, right? Because there may not be witnesses, there may not be any objective evidence of what happened. And so the person claiming self-defense, you're dependent upon their credibility. And if they go to the police afterwards and tell a bunch of lies, well, they're liars. You can't trust their credibility. There goes their self-defense claim. The difference here is we're not dependent upon Miu's credibility because we have the video, ironically enough, video from the people on the other side of the fight. But we have objective evidence of what happened. So to my mind, his credibility doesn't really matter when you have that objective evidence of the material facts.
Yeah, exactly. All right, want to keep going?
They choked him too. This is what happens to kids who are never disciplined and learn how to treat other people in real life. They probably thought it was over at this point. Probably did. They learned that.
Oh, by the way, when they say they were disarmed, I hate it when people say that because nobody's disarmed. None of us are ever disarmed. They may not have had some kind of weapon as an implement, but they were armed with their fists. They were armed with their numbers. They were armed with the environment, including a 15-inch deep water in a river. They were not unarmed. They had artificial means of inducing death or serious bodily injury in this guy.
Absolutely.
You know, collectively, their body mass was 2,000 pounds, literally a ton of people against one 52-year-old quadruple bypass patient.
Yeah. And they were the bullies and thought this attack on one guy was funny. Who's laughing now?
They sure did think it was funny. They were laughing their asses off.
Yeah, they having a great time.
They thought this was going to be some great Instagram or TikTok fuel.
Well, it did end up being that.
Well, yeah, but they thought it was just going to be lol, some guy getting rolled.
Yep, exactly.
Strange thing that's happening in the case, though. Our happy stabber says that a kid pulled a knife, so he took it and stabbed him in the chest with it, after he straight up told police he didn't have a knife on him. That's a freeze frame from a push, trying to make it look like he's being choked. He isn't.
Okay.
Okay. The kid's hands were on him for a couple of seconds, pushing him away into the water.
Oh, please. Oh, please. Interpret the way you like, yeah?
But of course, we know that only because we're watching it after the fact, right? We know what happened afterwards. When it's happening in the moment, the most aggressive thing you can do to another person with your hands is put your hands in their face and on their neck.
And the weirdest part about Isaac, he was the last guy. Like, he jumped into the fight last. Wasn't like he was the first guy in the fight who was right there and he took the first blow. There have been multiple things going on and then he took a blow. And it's just... It's like he really wanted to be in the fight that bad. I think he wanted to join in.
So it could be a couple things, right? One is sometimes there's that guy in the group who just wants to make sure he gets some credit for participating.
I think
so he throws the last punch, you know? Or it may have been that he was somebody who finally realized that people were getting stabbed. He saw this guy as a deadly force threat and decided he had to do something about it. Of course, nothing about Isaac Schuman's state of mind affects the defender's perception of necessary self-defense. Those are two completely different things. They could, in theory, both be completely right.
They could both be justified. Yeah. The mistake goes both ways.
And I completely agree with you. Prosecution did that in trial. In trial, freeze frames as self-contained arguments. That really annoyed me.
It does two things, actually. It does that because you can pretend that represents the continuum.
He's smiling.
Like he's smiling or smirking or whatever. But the other thing it does, and they did this in Rittenhouse too, Binger did this, you take like 3 seconds of an event and highly stressful event, and then you print every frame as a photograph and you end up with 500 individual photos and you slowly put them in front of the jury, and it creates the impression that look at all the time this person had to consider and deliberate and get a sense of what's going on and had an opportunity to act or not act. But that's not at all how it happened in real time, right? Our brains don't capture events frame by frame like that.
Exactly, because afterwards, like we watched the actual full video, and it was like over, crazy, so quick.
Yeah, I think something that the defense should have done, and by the defense, I thought the defense closing was like a 9 out of 10, maybe an 8 out of 10. It was very solid.
Yeah.
But something I thought they should have done is they should have taken that video and played it straight through and then had a freeze frame every time someone put hands on Miu. Every time. Freeze frame, there it is again. There it is again. There it is again. From this direction, from that direction, from another direction. Not that I think it would have helped. Given how, I mean, now we know it wouldn't have helped. I don't believe it would have helped because really the jury didn't deliberate. I mean, they got the case in the afternoon of one day, and 2 hours into the morning of the next day, they returned their verdict. I mean, they weren't deliberating anything.
No.
Nah, it was like they were given those lesser charges, and it was like, oh, okay, there's our way out. So that's kind of how I feel like it was.
Oh,
like,
well, that's why they did it. The
Yeah.
state doesn't ask for lesser charges because they feel confident in their case.
No. Okay, Dolly.
This is a still from right after he stabbed that poor girl in the bikini. Poor girl. Yeah, okay. He punched one of the ladies and stabbed the other girl in this picture before he was attacked. No.
Okay. No.
To the kids, this was a guy that did not say a word and entered their space. The kids did not know why. First thing I would have thought too was that he was a pervert after the white girls. What? Now he's in prison dropping soaps. This age like milk, old man. Good Lord.
Of course, nothing he did would have been presented in a favorable light, right? If he'd said something, he would have been speaking aggressively, right?
Yeah.
The state made a big deal about how he was holding the knife down by his waist, like he was hiding it, like he was going to strike like a snake from the low waist position. But if he'd raised that knife, they would have charged him with brandishing that weapon.
Yeah.
By the way, what likely would have happened then, I think the prosecution's right. If he had waved the knife around, he probably wouldn't have gotten punched. The fight probably wouldn't have happened because a bunch of kids in bathing suits don't want to go after a dude waving a knife around. But then Nicolae Miu would have been charged with brandishing a deadly weapon at those kids.
Yeah. And the other thing I loved when the state said, well, and I love it because now in St. Croix County, if you just stab inwards, that's not murderous intent. If you stab and go up, that's how you know you're trying to murder somebody. Per the prosecution. That was the best part. I love that. I don't know. Did you catch that part in the closing arguments, Bronca?
Yeah.
And
again, the trouble is how gruesome the injury is. Now, Nicolae Miu would say, hey, the only reason the knife came up was because I was falling backwards.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to raise the knife.
Yeah.
And he was moving too, right? He was falling onto the sharp edge of the knife.
And even then, I think the argument is, look, I used force to stop the threat. Like, once the train leaves the station, that, shit happens.
Shit does happen.
Yeah.
Username, I think that's what your name is spelled backwards. The state convinced them fair and square. Sure, the state did convince them. That's what happens. The state convinces juries. That's their job. Fair and square, sure. Okay. Well, will they use any means they can to convince juries? That's what they do. Okay.
I would need someone to explain to me in a rational way how any of these stabbings were reckless as opposed to intentional.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And by the way, I suspect that in secret, if you could speak to the prosecutors privately, they now deeply regret asking for those lesser includeds, because I bet if they hadn't, they would have gotten intentional. There's no way this jury with this brief deliberations ever seriously considered acquittal on self-defense.
Yeah. I would like to just ask, with the lesser included, is there something else? There's got to be something else besides this reckless charge. Like,
there's a whole list. No, from intentional homicide down, it's like a cascade of lesser included charges.
Yeah.
But everybody knows that going in. I mean, the defense knows that going in. Like the George Zimmerman trial, they tried to get as a lesser included assault of a minor, because George Martin had killed Trayvon Martin, and Trayvon Martin was technically a minor. He was 17 years old. And the state was so afraid they weren't going to get him on any of the other 30 lesser includeds they had. They tried to tack on the end assault of a minor child.
I don't know what you mean that your Miu comments are trolls for the most part. I don't think you're trolling. I think everyone here is putting forth valid points. Anyway,
no, he's saying his own Miu comments are troll.
You're trolling, are you? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Really? Okay. Okay. So the face of gentle
giant.
Gentle giant. Okay, do you want to keep going, darling?
Jury got it wrong. Now the kids will get worse. They started it. How do they sleep at night? Probably not on their
Fine, I
stomach.
think.
Probably not on their stomach. Got knife and a disregard to human beings with an ugly smirk and intent to harm. Guilty. Stick and stones, but words make me want to gut and kill. Jesus. Got it, victims. Got knife and a disregard to human beings with an ugly smirk and intent to harm. Guilty. Stick. Oh, that's the same one.
They repeated it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care.
That's me.
I don't care if she screamed and cursed and called him pedophile for 6 hours. No one can make you kill or stab multiple people. Stop blaming Mattison.
Oh, stop blaming poor Mattison. And this one is Branka, that's your voice. You can read
none
that
other.
Well, you gotta sing it like
I gotta sing it, I guess. Yeah. Apple River Queen. You know what I mean.
Nah.
That was awesome.
Well, I know the song.
River Karen.
Yeah, that's some of those kids probably don't sleep well at night. I think a couple of them, when they're not sitting on the stand, realize like, oh my God, I'm the reason why my friend is dead. Now
they should realize that, but I doubt it. I don't think they have that level of self-awareness. It's so much easier for the ego to blame someone else, especially now when you've had a court find someone else guilty. You can say, "We got him. We got the bad man who did this."
Yeah, it is. Maybe when they grow up a little bit, but not now. Absolutely not now. All right, let's watch this.
Maybe you've been drinking that day, right?
Yeah, I had a
showing us the
beers.
mark, exhibit 12A. You recognize that?
Yes.
That's the group photo of you folks from the beginning of the river.
Yep.
In fact, you're holding a beer.
Correct.
Looks like everybody in your group has some sort of alcoholic beverage.
Looks like it.
You see numerous people in your group with these phone cases around their necks.
Yeah.
And as you're going down the river, you saw lots of people with phone cases around their necks, right?
Mm-hmm.
All day long?
Yeah.
In fact, River's Edge sells or rents out those phone cases, right?
I don't know that.
Did people in your group rent or buy phone cases from the tube rental?
I have no idea.
All right.
Correct.
All right. Ariel's phone was in one of those cases, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it.
All right. And is it your understanding that those cases are float cases?
That's what I was told.
All right. And you told Lieutenant Hart that it was in a float case, right?
Correct.
Once the phone disappeared, there was conversation amongst the folks in your group about whether it was even worth it to go look for it, right?
That's what I learned.
And in fact, you were told that they didn't care about the lost phone because they had insurance to cover it, right?
That's what I learned here, but I don't remember that as a conversation.
Nobody asked you to go look for the phone, right?
Correct.
You chose to do that on your own.
I volunteered.
And in fact, members of your group were a little annoyed that you were stopping.
This is that broadening
so
of
quickly
recklessness
after having been at the hideaway where you'd stopped for lunch. In any event, you're the one who insisted on looking for it. Nobody asked you to do that, right?
Who cares?
Sustained. And when you left to go look for the phone, you had your goggles and your snorkel, right? You knew that the phone was in a float bag. At least that's what you told police afterwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
So the bag, the phone and the float bag would have been floating, right?
Supposedly, yeah.
All right. And so you wouldn't need a snorkel and goggles to find a phone floating on top of the water, right?
I wasn't sure if it was actually floating or not. Never tested it.
All right. Well, you would agree that a phone has some weight to it.
Yes.
And if it wasn't a float bag, it would sink to the bottom, right?
Yes.
Where it was dropped.
Correct.
What are they trying to prove?
Or remember, it's a river, so
Correct.
it could have flown down.
The river has current, right?
He's trying to prove there.
So it
If I can approach, I'm going to draw something here.
He's trying to prove that the phone wouldn't have gone very far, and wherever they dropped it,
He chose to go over to where these boys were to look
Completely
supposedly look
speculative.
for this phone.
Yeah.
Chose to look in the area, yes.
There was
Notice
other
there's no
areas of the
expert
river
witness
where-
on this issue.
And there are experts who could talk about river drift and current flow and all that.
But
That's an actual thing
still,
that can be done.
he's allowed to go look for his phone, right?
Right. But it's irrelevant. It's this expansive net of recklessness I was talking about earlier. So they want to charge him with reckless endangerment, reckless homicide. Properly understood, the question is, was his use of the knife reckless? Not, did he make some unrelated reckless decision 10, 15, 20 minutes earlier on the river to look for a phone? That's got nothing to do with the stabbing.
And this whole idea of him not being allowed to be in their space, like, at all, like, they don't own the river.
Yeah, but this, I know why he did it. He did this to show, and it's to show everybody, this is all about, at the end of the day, like, it's for the want of a horseshoe nail situation. He's saying it's all over his cell phone. And he's saying nobody cared about the cell phone except Nick. And that just from there builds their story, which is a load of horseshit. But yes, that's how they started this. And that's what they were trying to paint. Not a guy who was just walking along doing his thing, getting harassed and then hassled.
Yeah. Dear me. Dali, would you like to read that?
Nicolai's own friends warned him not to approach the group because he looked like a predator and to ignore the missing phone.
Yeah, that's not true, actually.
Yeah.
Did anyone testify to that?
No.
I don't think
One of his friends, Eric Von William, testified that he was concerned about him scuba diving over the group because he had a subjective concern that he might be perceived as a pedophile. He never said he told the defendant that.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He didn't listen, so he has nobody to blame but himself. Justice.
Hashtag justice.
Stabber Nicolae Miu was drinking and intoxicated. Missing phone was not a concern of the owner of the phone. He specifically told Miu to forget about it. A second friend also told him, do not bother with the kids. You might look like a predator to them. Would be a bad idea, and I do not want to start a scene.
Yeah, that's just
Really?
a lie. That never happened. That never happened.
It's in quote marks and bold and italic and everything.
They're just making it up. They're just making it up.
This is ridiculous. People are just making shit
By the
up.
way, folks, this is why I don't comment on cases unless I've watched the actual case, because unless you've watched it, you don't know what's bullshit like this or not.
Remember how many people still think Cal Rittenhouse murdered black people?
Right.
I saw somebody today say his mom drove him across state lines.
His mom.
Well, she did drive him across state lines, just not with a rifle.
Yeah.
Design.
Well, you know who crossed
exactly.
state lines too? Nicolae Miu.
Yes. Yeah, Nicolae Miu did from Minnesota.
Design. This is why I do this, right? Because it is good to read. No doubt some of the jury thought, yes.
This is the jury pool, by the way.
This is exactly why, because we need to see what people are saying and thinking out there to really understand what's going on in people's heads, like the diversity of thought that is going on. Because sometimes we're all like, how we literally say, how could people think this? And then when we actually look outside of what the algorithm's showing us, because the algorithm shows us people that we agree with generally, because we gravitate towards people that we agree with. And when we go and really search outside of that, we start to see opinions that we don't agree with, and it's shocking. But that's unfortunately when we see.
And it's not just the algorithm; it's normal life is like that, right? So most of us in these little groups that we do, we're all reasonably intelligent people, right? Probably above average intelligence, I would say, well above average. I'd like to say, but the internet's open access; everybody gets in. Half the population has an IQ below 100. Half the population is doing things just for attention. They don't care about truth or not. They don't care about law. They don't care about evidence. They just want someone to pay attention to them, even if that attention is, no, you're telling a lie right then. I just gave this dipshit attention by pointing out that he was lying. That's what he's here for. So it becomes a shit fest, because these people aren't here in good faith. They're here to participate in a shitfest.
Yeah. Correct. Hey, Cowpoke, it's good to see you here. Yeah, I think a lot of people would, and you are right. Who said that Law and Crime? Yes, Ariel. I was surprised too. The Law and Crime chat, the Court TV chat, they were very much not guilty, and that is so unlike them. That is so unlike them. There was a lot of not guilties in there. Okay, and hey, Phil Foss, TYO Toys. There we go. Would you like to read Darlie? He really likes it when Darlie reads his voice. Do a good job now, Darlie.
All right. Is that a smile? The debate continues with Recovery Addict 2, watching the Apple Rivert stabbing trial on a scale from 1-10. This trial is highly controversial.
That's a weird sentence, isn't it? On a scale of 1 to 10, he doesn't give a number as the answer. Aren't you supposed to get a number for the answer?
Well, there was a lot of scales of 1 to 10 in the trial.
Oh, that's true.
That's true. All right, there we go. Keep going, please.
It's a conveniently captured expression. That's all. Unfortunately, until they all started sobbing like babies, all of the punks were smiling. Fair. Jeez. No, it's a disgusted grimace, like the kind you give your kids when they are doing stupid sit and gonna get hurt.
Just before you stab your kids?
The part that I keep coming to is, why didn't he immediately contact police? Why did he lie? If someone broke in my home and attacked me and shot them in self-defense, I'd call police stat. I wouldn't roll him outside and pretend I didn't know what happened. That'd be weird.
Well, maybe he thought he'd be railroaded by the authorities.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And he was from Romania, I think, or some Eastern Bloc country.
Right.
So
Romania, yes.
He probably doesn't have a lot of trust in the police.
The land of
Let's just
Nicolae
watch this little bit. Let's just watch this little bit.
That was the look on your face at the time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You're smiling.
I'm confused.
You're smiling.
I'm confused.
You're smiling. Right?
How's that not argumentative?
You're smiling.
It is
a smile.
Well, let's take a look at the video.
On a scale from 1 to 10, comfort level is very low.
Okay.
Do you smell what I'm stepping in?
Yeah. To keep going, you're smiling, you're smiling, you're smiling. That's argumentative, isn't it?
Yes.
Or badgering the witness?
Yeah, of course. One thing I did not like about his testimony was the way he kept saying, "I was standing my ground. I was standing my ground."
Yeah.
Legally, that may be correct, but it comes across as you're making an affirmative decision to stay there and see what they're going to do, and that looks bad. Then you begin to it creates an impression of being more like a mutual combatant, right?
Yeah,
like I'm kind of situation.
Yeah, and he said, "Look, I didn't know where to go. I couldn't."
Right.
Just,
they were between me and my group. I didn't want to get further from my group.
Yeah, I couldn't turn
I
around.
didn't see. I felt like I was surrounded, but several times he used the phrase, "I was standing my ground," and I think it sounds horrible.
Horrible.
Yeah.
That made me cringe so much.
Especially when you don't have that law in your state.
Isn't it true that's not in that state? It's in Florida.
No, it is a stand your ground state. There is no legal duty to retreat. So if there's no legal duty to retreat, there's no legal duty to retreat. But there's 39 stand your ground states. 31 of them, there's no legal duty to retreat. So the prosecution can tell the jury you violated a legal duty to retreat. That doesn't exist. But what they can say is, listen, there's no legal duty to retreat. We're a proud stand your ground state here in Wisconsin, but there was a safe avenue of retreat, and a reasonable person would have taken advantage of it. And that makes this guy's failure to do that unreasonable. And reasonableness is another element of self-defense. So it's kind of a flanking attack on your failure to retreat through the element of reasonableness instead of through the element of avoidance, which technically doesn't apply. Most states, I call those soft stand your ground states. Most of the soft stand your ground states don't make that argument as explicit in the jury instructions. They leave the door open for the state to make that argument, but it's not laid out like that for the jury unless the prosecution makes the argument, like in closing.
And I still think it's totally unconstitutional for that.
What's that?
I still think it's wholly unconstitutional. The law says you don't have to do something. Okay, well, if I do something I'm allowed to do under the law, then to say, well, because you did something you're legally allowed to do, well, that allows to infer your guilt on that same issue. I think that's, and I understand that's the way Wisconsin does it, and a lot of states, not a lot of states, some states do it. I think that's wholly wrong and goes against the idea of what a duty to retreat. It should be, that's it. You can't talk about it. He could have done a million things, but that should be there.
That are stand your ground states, where those 8 states, they say the jury is not permitted to consider the possibility of retreat in determining the reasonableness of the defensive force. And in those 8 states, it's completely off the table. Avoidance is completely off the table, because if the jury is not allowed to consider a fact, the prosecution is not permitted to argue to the fact. I mean, it's legally irrelevant to the case then. But it's only 8. There's 39 states that are stand your ground. Only 8 of them are hard stand your ground states that don't permit that argument, that reasonableness argument.
It's like you can't do anything right. You just can't do anything right.
Well, it's one of the reasons I always caution people, especially in the self-defense community in America. There's a contingent, a faction that often go by the name sheepdog. They're kind of hyper self-defense, and they're like, well, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And of course, it's an absolute statement that's true. I would suggest there's more alternatives than that. There's more options than that. But what they fail to consider is that they're always assuming that their conduct in defense of themselves or others will obviously be seen as so pristine by a jury that they have zero risk of getting convicted. And there's never zero risk of getting convicted. I mean, in most cases, there's at least a 50% chance of getting convicted. And in the best circumstances, you are the most innocent person I've ever seen in my entire life. And all the evidence is in your favor, and all the law is in your favor. And the prosecutors are turnips. There's still at least a 10% chance you get convicted if we put you in front of a jury.
Well, I said this. I said this before, Blanca.
Sorry, go.
No, I've said this before, Bronca, and I don't know if you've ever heard me say it. At the end of the day, you've got people in your community who, it's not us. It's somebody who might say, yeah, I'd use, they agree with the concept, you use self-defense to defend your family in your home. Okay. But even then, for most of them, they would never do it. They don't have guns. And then for the ones that do have guns, it's still a million miles from their reality. They could even comprehend it. That when you use violence in a public setting for them, you are already operating on a level they can never fathom. They would never, ever envision themselves. So you've already got that. I argue you're kind of behind the 8 ball in that sense. These jurors are like, yeah, I'll keep an open mind. But to them, the idea of stabbing people while you're out tubing on the river is just something that it completely mortifies them. Just like the dumpster bros. That idea of getting into a gunfight, and to those jurors, they're going to say this was over a mattress. Now, it's obviously not what it was, but to them, they're going to say, you really went to all this struggle over a mattress. For most jurors, that blows their mind you did this, and that it ended up here.
Right. And this didn't have to happen.
Yes.
Right? Which is not self-defense law, but it's a sentiment.
No, it's not, but it's
that people will have.
Yeah, and that's that 10% though, where the jury's like, yeah, still don't think you should have done it.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Murphs, for the gifted memberships.
You are amazing. Thank you.
Yes. And it's worth pointing out, there's lots of cases where the defendant, and this happened in the George Zimmerman trial too. So George Zimmerman defended himself against Trayvon Martin and killed Trayvon Martin.
New Mexico.
Was tried, Florida. Tried for murder.
Oh, sorry. Cummins, I was thinking.
And I watched every minute of that trial too. And George Zimmerman made zero legal mistakes in his use of force in self-defense. It's probably the cleanest case of self-defense I've ever seen brought to trial. That doesn't mean he didn't make mistakes. He didn't make any legal mistakes, but he made tactical mistakes. So he's in his car, he's observing the suspicious character. He's been trained by his police department, because he's part of the neighborhood watch program. He's been trained by his police department. If you see somebody suspicious, call us. So he's on the phone with the police doing exactly what they told him. And then Trayvon Martin realizes he's being watched, sees George Zimmerman on the phone, figures George Zimmerman's on the phone with the cops, which is true. He's getting a patrol car sent there. Imagine this racist, brutal murderer is calling for the police so they can arrive just in time for him to commit his crime, right? But Trayvon Martin runs away around a building in this condo complex. And George says to the dispatcher, "Oh, he's running." And the dispatcher says, "Where's he running to?" Well, George can't see through a building, so he gets out of his car, walks to the corner of the building to look around the corner to be able to answer the dispatcher's question. Then the dispatcher can hear wind noise on the cell phone. He says, "Hey, are you out of your car?" And Zimmerman says, "Yeah." And they say, "Well, we don't need you to do that." And Zimmerman says, "Okay." And he starts walking back to his car. He hangs up the phone with dispatch. And that's when Trayvon Martin steps out from behind the bush and ambushes George Zimmerman. So George Zimmerman made no legal mistakes, but he made a tactical mistake. He put himself in an ambush position and he got himself ambushed. And if you asked him today, and I didn't know George at the time, but I've come to know him since, if you asked him today and said, "You think you'd stay in the car if that happened again, regardless of what the dispatcher was asking you?" He'd say, "F yeah, I'd never get out of the car today because I know what
never
happened."
Get out of the boat.
If you asked Nicolae Miu, "Do you think you'd stay away from groups of young men on the river, knowing what you know today, how things can escalate and spin out of control," even though he's not legally required to do that? There was nothing legally wrong with him doing it. It was not a legal mistake. But was it a tactical mistake? Was it, in hindsight, poor decision-making? That's really what his friend Eric Von William was suggesting. Listen, everyone's drinking on the river. We're drinking on the river. Those people are shit-faced. You don't need to get near groups of young men who are shit. Only bad things can happen, right? Good things cannot happen. It doesn't mean it's unlawful. It doesn't mean it's crime. It doesn't mean he deserves to be convicted. But for the rest of us, it helps to have the foresight to recognize problems before you find yourself inextricably engaged in those problems. I've carried a gun for 33 years, every day. I've never come close to needing it. But there's been plenty of times when I've been in circumstances where I felt like, you know what, if I stay here, I might need to use that gun. So I left.
Yeah, you walk away. Yep.
It's the you don't go to stupid places doing stupid things with stupid people.
The whole George being told not to get out of his car, was that the media altering the call?
No one ever told him not to get out of his car. That never happened.
Yeah.
So once he was out of his car, they asked him to go back to the car. Well, they didn't even do that. They asked him, "Are you following him?" And he said yes. And they said, "We don't need you to do that." And he said, "Okay." But he was already out of the car by then. No one ever told him to not get out of the car. That's one of the lies about the case. That he was told not to get out and he got out despite being told not to. Never happened.
Interesting.
And we know it never happened because we have the whole 911 call. So the only place that instruction could have been given is on that call. In fact, I speak at the FBI Academy at Quantico about these high-profile cases, and that's one of them. And I'll ask, their auditorium, 300 FBI special agents, senior law enforcement from all over the country, and I'll ask them, how many people believe George Zimmerman got out of his car after being told not to get out? And every hand goes up. I swear to God. And then I'll say, can we all agree the only place that instruction could have been given is on the 911 call itself? And everybody nods. And I say, I have all 3 minutes and 11 seconds of that 911 call. I'm going to play it for you now. When that dispatcher tells him not to get out of his car, I want you to raise your hand. And I play the whole 3 minutes, 11 seconds, and not a single hand goes up because it never happens. And after I'm done, I say, now how many people think he was told not to get out of the car and did it anyway? And no hands go up, but I can see their faces. And about half the faces are the expressions of people who are like, holy cow, I was really misled by the media and the propaganda, and I've learned something new here. And the other half of the audience, their faces like stone. They've become so emotionally committed to that lie that they cannot absorb the reality that it is a lie. They're incapable of moving themselves from a position they never reasoned themselves into in the first place.
That's what happens. So jury probably thought that Miu saying stand your ground wasn't reasonable per statute. Why would the defense, his attorneys, have, they would have talked to him prior. Him continuing to say, I stood my ground, they would have talked to him about that, surely.
You can only prep a witness so much. You can only spend so many hours with them.
Yeah.
Cross-examination is very brutal, very intense.
Yeah.
It's not a normal experience for people. And, his life is at stake, right? Literally, life in prison is at stake. And it's very difficult to keep in mind everything you're supposed to say, and maybe things you don't want to phrase a certain way, and you're defending yourself, and the prosecution's being sarcastic and insulting, and it's tough. That's the danger of putting even an innocent client on the stand, because they're going to be subject to and keep in mind the prosecution. Any smart lawyer at trial, when they're questioning the witnesses, they're not just trying to elicit testimony. They know what they want their closing argument to look like at the end. They know the things they want to be able to say at the end that are the testimony from the witnesses. And they're trying to elicit from the witnesses specific words and phrases where at closing they can say, even the state's witness told us this, or even the defense witness said this, or even the defendant himself told us X, right?
Yes.
So they're fishing for those specific words, and the defendant has no idea what those words are. None.
Oh, like, did you look in their eyes when you lied?
Yes. And the other thing is, too, he's been in jail for nearly 2 years now. That wears him down. Yeah, Cross is terrifying because his attorneys definitely told him, if you fuck up, you're done. If you get angry, you're done. I mean, you have to, there's so many ways that if you start screwing up and you start going, you're done. They're only so, like, any of that stuff a jury sees you. I mean, in this situation, obviously we know now they convicted him, but if you're on the precipice and you start messing up, that's it.
Right. If it's a tie on cross-examination, the state wins, right? If the state makes 50 mistakes and you make 50 mistakes, the state wins. You need to make 0 mistakes, right? The state can ask a whole bunch of questions they don't get satisfactory answers to. But if you're the witness, you're the defendant on the stand, and you F up once, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on, shall we? So Lily in London did a poll, and she got 878 votes. And again, thank you to Lily in London. She has quite a good reach, so she managed to get 32,000 views and a decent amount of people responding to her poll. Wow, the Apple River stabbing trial really divides people. The jury had the option of first-degree murder or self-defense. What do you think? Or has the option? So it was before they actually went to deliberation, and therefore before the reckless charge was put up. 81.7% went with self-defense, and first-degree murder was only 18.3%.
I will say this is very close to my own polling of my audience. My law self-defense audience was about 85% not guilty on the merits.
Yeah. And so, that was straight out on the Twitter. So there you go. And I think that's, it was probably what I was seeing when I was out there researching, just general chats out there. So, Dali, would you like to read these?
The issue is the state charged with first degree, which equals premeditated. He didn't go upstream to cause harm. 13 people fucked around and found out.
Well, that's all right. So people misunderstand what premeditated mean. They think it means pre-planned, like you made a list and you bought the duct tape and the chloroform and the rope and all that crap. Of course, that kind of pre-planning would qualify as premeditation, but premeditation can occur in an instant. All it means is you intended to do that act. He doesn't need to have planned it while he was going up the river. When he takes the knife and opens it up and stabs someone, that's premeditated. He's intending to do that. That's all that's required.
Yeah. Next one.
I'm not choosing first degree murder when there are lesser charges on the table. Manslaughter, definitely.
Oh, that wasn't put up there.
No. I go to River Falls 9 mins away, and sadly, Hudson, Wisconsin is an extremely liberal state. And this guy, I don't want him to go to jail, but probably will. Self-defense all day long.
All day long. Well, unfortunately, it was one or the other. It was either premeditated homicide or what was eventually put forth. And that was a life sentence anyway, really.
Reckless homicide, reckless endangerment. People should keep in mind that if self-defense was a 50-50 call, and it used to be, I mean, most recently, Ohio was the last state that still did it that way. The burden was on the defense to prove self-defense by a preponderance of the evidence. So basically a 50-50 call. But that's not the burden. The burden is you could think it's 80% not likely to be self-defense. That's still an acquittal. The state is supposed to have the burden to disprove self-defense beyond any reasonable doubt. So you can think it's overwhelmingly likely it was not self-defense, and that's still supposed to be an acquittal.
We should have Sean read some of these. Apparently he has a good Wisconsin accent.
Yeah.
Sean, would you like to read this top one?
Just so you know, you're muted. I mean,
yes, yeah, I'm gonna get my Wisconsin accent.
Please.
On the tubes. Yes, defense attorney Corey Sheriff Fossey in the Apple River murder today was on fire. For those wondering why Nicolae Miu, such a nice boy, didn't comply with the teenager's demands to leave, let's clarify. Mattison isn't the queen of the river. It's about time someone said, gosh darn it. Sheriff Fossey dismantled the prosecution's theory. God, it's not bad today. And cover the teenager's false testimony. Every move those kids made was a threat. And you've got 10 seconds to leave, buddy boy. Hey there. Signals trouble we all recognize.
Don't make me take your cheese.
Yeah.
That was great.
Hey there.
Hey there.
Hey there.
No, hey there. There.
Hey there.
Hey
Yeah.
there. Hey there.
You got the tube.
That was amazing.
We know that Mattison Cohen feels comfortable enough to put her hands on him for the first time and move him because, well, she's queen of the river and she decides where people go. So she's moving him. We know that. We know that Nick is uncomfortable. So he waits for his group to come over because the state can say whatever they want. He's by himself.
You're back.
So we know Nick does that. We know that when Nick waves to his group, so does Mattison Cohen. But there's one big difference here. Her group shows up. And they show up in numbers.
Do you want to read the next one, George?
Oh. Oh. The defense attorney nailed it on closing. All the prosecutor did was focus on lies Miu told after the incident because he had nothing to prove their case during the event. Sorry, that was a bad one. Sorry. But his point, though, that Sheriff Fossey did with the whole, we tell a kid you've got 3 seconds. What comes after that? Like, I agree, Bronca. That was like a 9 out of 10. It was a phenomenal closing argument.
Yep.
It was
and
great.
They outshone the state by a ton.
Yeah, we are sans serif at the moment. Serif is behind the thing.
I was really surprised at how poor the state's closing was.
Oh, the state's closing was garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Was garbage. It was ridiculous. Goodness me. Snivels, thank you so much for the 5 gifted memberships. My goodness. Thank you so much. That's wonderful of you. Can I read those out? Yes, Tracy Lub, Tammy Bugard, Wanda Kiesling, Lily, and Mo Grant. Congratulations. And also go over to my member tab and go join the Discord. All the new members, go join the Discord. We have heaps of fun in there. We have lovely member chats. It's awesome. Love ya. And Mimsy, Civils, and Murph, thank you, all of you guys today for becoming members and for the gifted memberships. Okay. Yes, Shirvisi really is very talented. And Miu, he did have some fantastic defense. It's just such a shame that this all happened. Yeah. Okay. Dali, he's gone. Okay. Sean?
Okay, I'll just read these normally. Nicolae Miu is going to prison over drunk underage. careless pieces of shit kids. No lies detected there. None of those kids were raised right. No lies detected. And it's really their fault their friend is dead. No lies detected. Fuck Wisconsin. I'm never going there.
No. If it weren't for the fact I've got some friends there, as in Solomon and Jan, etc., I wouldn't have no feeling of ever going there myself.
I bet you're not going tubing on the river, though.
Well, I mean, I'm scared of water generally. Except boating and all that kind of stuff, I get seasick. But and I'm an Australian, so like I have reason to be scared of water. There's lots of things that will kill you in there. Maybe not in Wisconsin, but you know, I've had some experiences, so therefore PTSD. But no, I there's lots of things in America that scare me, like, you know, people that will kill you. No, I wouldn't be doing that. Dali, would you like to read the next one?
I'm sure Wisconsin is fine with that, lol. Sorry, bud, but you can't go stabby because some kids hurt your fee-fees. Never, ever tube in Wisconsin. A drunken mob can attack and drown you, but they used reckless because they couldn't prove intentional crime. Oh.
Kind of.
The jury had to give them the community what they wanted. No, he's going to prison because he chose to run up and grab a group of kids, and then when they got rightly upset, he stabbed them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what happened. Righto.
I doubt it.
No, I doubt it. Yeah. Okay, so someone put forth an interesting argument here. So if Nicolae Miu was LGBT, woman, black, would this change the verdict? We really need to see this. No, we don't really need to see that. Okay. Translation. How do I blame minority for things that have nothing to do with them?
How does society react differently with cultural bias? A key point in this case was Nicolai's own actions. After he stabbed all these people, he walked away. He ditched his knife. He didn't tell his group anything. And then he tried to get away and pretend like he wasn't involved. The reason he was found guilty, not his race.
No, that's not the point. The reason he was found guilty was not his race. That's the point, though, right? So if he was LGBT, woman, black, would this change the verdict? What do you guys think? If he was a person of, like, a minority, do you think
it would change the calculus for charging him at all?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And we wouldn't have heard of it. Well,
yeah, I mean, you have to understand. So the prosecutor, when he's considering the case, right, bringing the case to trial, he's running an algorithm in his head of how likely he is to win. What kind of compelling narrative that he think he can sell to a jury? That's a lot harder to do if your defendant's, you know, somebody who's of a preferred political status or social status that's deemed more worthy of protection than if there's somebody who's the evildoer, right? The older white male.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, remember, he is an elected official, so that calculus is always there.
Yeah, exactly. There. I feel like the white male, the older white male, is more likely to be seen as the bad guy.
Yeah.
In this situation.
And that calculus affects every decision he does, whether he offers pleas, how does he proceed it, how he presents the trial. It's all part of it.
Exactly. And that's the reason he was called a pedophile in the first place.
And what lesson do you think this prosecutor has learned from this case? Right? I mean, just from my perspective, he wasn't a very good prosecutor. He's not a very good lawyer. He had shitty evidence. He had shitty law, or at least law not favorable to him.
Yeah.
And he got convictions for every one of these victims. Why wouldn't he do this again?
Yeah, of course. He
learned is I'll get reelected.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Dali, just want to read this last one?
Stop bringing black women who already don't get enough justice and is constantly done dirty in the justice system into your problems. This is an overgrown white man who couldn't control himself and killed a white child. Leave us out of it.
Okay. Wow. Okay, Lillian London is back. Not only is his life fucked now, we all know those teenagers will go ahead and sue the shit out of him. Open doors. I don't know what that was. Open doors now for people to punch and insult others. Oh, Solomon's there. Don't forget the part when they try and hold his head underwater. Yeah, did they actually try and hold his head under the water at one point?
Well, at one point they punch him into the water. They hit him again. He rolls so he's on his back. He rolls onto his hands and knees, and I think it's AJ Martin. Somebody puts his hands in his back and pushes him down, face down towards the water. Whether his face gets in the water, I don't think so. But of course, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? And you're allowed to defend yourself against the imminent threat, the threat that's about to be present. And if you're on your hands and knees after getting punched twice, by the way, the first punch took him clean off his feet. Punched twice, you're on your hands and knees and someone's pushing you down into the water from above. That's a very defenseless position.
Yeah, yes, Kare. They hold him underwater. They said on the stand. Right, okay. Dolly, that one up there.
He never had a chance in a Wisconsin courtroom. Glad I live in the state I live in, with self-defense laws that favor the victim.
Don't be too confident.
That has nothing to do with Wisconsin. That has everything to do with your jury.
Yeah,
I guarantee you I could find 12 people in that guy's county who would convict in this situation.
He's guilty. He initiated the contact, slashed without warning, and lied about it. He will win an appeal and overturn.
No.
Sorry, wrong. And the journey to an appeal is long and painful and very expensive. Right, Solomon in chat? Very sad, but true.
Well, the trouble is, all the factual matters we may disagree with are in the province of the jury, and no appellate court's going to second guess them. All the legal things I would disagree with, I feel do fall within the boundaries of the jury instructions that the judge approved. So it wasn't like they were counter to the law. I think the judge had plenty of discretion to contextualize those jury instructions for the facts of this case, but he doesn't have to. And as long as he stays within the pattern, the boundaries of the pattern jury instructions, the standardized jury instructions, he's relatively safe from being overruled. All his evidentiary rulings they're not going to be touched absent abuse of discretion, which is almost never found and won't be found here. I honestly see zero path to any meaningful relief on appeal for this guy.
Solomon has a question for you there, Andrew.
Could the judge have thrown out the verdict?
Well, he could have, but he's not gonna. That almost never happens. So you can get a judgment notwithstanding the verdict. The defense did ask for a directed verdict at both when the state rested and after they rested, and the judge said no. A directed verdict would only be appropriate where, if you look at the evidence in the light most favorable to the prosecution, there's no way a rational jury can find guilt. And prosecutors are pretty careful to make sure they don't need a lot of evidence to pass that hurdle. They need like 1% evidence, right? Gets you past that hurdle. So they're always careful to get some testimony from some witnesses. That's enough to meet that very minimal threshold. It just doesn't happen. It happens, I don't know, maybe Steve Gosney knows, maybe he did an article on this, but once every 20 million cases, it just doesn't happen.
It never does.
Yeah.
In the trials I've covered.
Young, I'm going to ask in private chat. We'll move on from this for a moment. Okay, so yes, insulting people will remain legal. You want blood for a shitty remark. Also, so many people wrongfully call others pedophiles on this app constantly. What app? And people seem fine with it. Oh, right, it's talking about X. Yes, okay. So I don't think it's right to call anyone something so heinous as a pedophile anyway. So it's just shocking to call someone something like that.
Not like Joe Biden was on the river.
By the way, he didn't stab anybody because he was insulted. That's not what happened.
Well, they tried to make it sound like that, but no. I'm utterly baffled and confused. Where did they find these jurors? in the basement.
These are your neighbors.
Yeah.
These are your neighbors.
These are the people that'll judge you one day if you're charged.
Cool. Alrighty, moving on. Okay. Now, defense diaries. It's interesting. Defense diaries covered this. And this is what he had to say. Dolly?
Jury finds Nicolae Miu guilty of lesser included first-degree reckless homicide, a Class B felony on count 1 for the death of Isaac Schuman. Class B felony can carry a sentence of up to 60 years. Miu was also found guilty on lesser included on remaining counts as well. Sentencing date to be set in future.
So, but this is the equivalent. So, first-degree reckless homicide is the equivalent to that.
Can you hear that? Okay.
Yeah,
I can. I think it's right. You know, but I have to tell you, that carries a very stiff penalty. So, first-degree reckless homicide is the reckless causing of a death of another human being, under circumstances which show an utter disregard for human life. It falls under a Class B felony, which carries a penalty punishable by imprisonment not to exceed 60 years.
Holy shit.
So this is it's pretty heavy duty, man. Like this is no like slap on the wrist, because a lot of voluntary manslaughter are much less in terms of the years. So yeah, man. I mean, he stabbed a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? It's like I think that there was fault on both sides, but in terms of the verdict, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, to be honest with you.
Because he doesn't know what it means.
Talk about like sentencing and stuff.
Yeah. So, but this is the equivalent.
Okay. So
he doesn't know what reckless means. So reckless has a specific legal meaning. What he's thinking is that he feels bad that it would be first-degree murder because this guy was, after all, slapped around a bit. So it should be something less than that. And he thinks recklessness is just like an emotionally lesser degree of homicide than intentional. Recklessness has a specific legal meaning. It means you knowingly created an unjustified risk of death to other people, deliberately ignored that risk, and then death resulted. The classic example would be drunk driving homicide, right? So you drink at the bar, you get behind the wheel of your car to go home. You're not intending to kill anybody. You're intending to get home. But you know that when you get drunk behind the wheel, you're creating an unjustified risk of death. And then if you run somebody over, you've committed a reckless homicide. But you were never intending to cause anybody injury. That's not what happened here. That's not what happened with Nicolae Miu. He was intending to stab every one of those people. So either it was intentional or it was intentional and justified as self-defense. It was not reckless.
Exactly. So actually, I almost had Bob Motter on the show today, and it's a shame because we could have had a discussion about this. So because I'm quite good friends with one of his mods. In fact, she's one of my mods, and she contacted me and said, "Oh, would you like to include this on your stream today?" I said, "Cool." And I found it really interesting. Yes, he is a defense attorney. He just has some different views. That's all. And he's got a very successful channel. Very successful channel.
You're talking about me?
And so,
well, you too.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know who you were talking about.
Oh, no, Bob Motter.
Bob
the
Motter,
guy on the screen.
the guy who was just talking.
Defense Diaries.
Defense Diaries, yeah. And he has an extremely successful channel, covers a lot of cases. At the moment, Delphi is probably the main one that he's known for. But yeah, that was him commenting on the reckless charges. So yeah, I found it very interesting. He said, as he said, he's fine with the verdict. And he said he stabbed a lot of people. So
but that's not what recklessness means, that you stabbed a lot of people.
Yeah. So yeah, I would have liked for him to have been here and for us to have had that discussion. But
I think that's how the jury decided. I think the jury said, well, he stabbed a bunch of people. We have to hold him accountable some way. But that's not what the law says. The law says you can stab a lot of people. That can be perfectly lawful.
Exactly. We're about to get to what you said about that in a minute. Hang on. These two comments here, please, Dolly.
First degree means premeditated. That don't even make no F sense. First degree reckless is not the same as first degree intentional homicide, which is a class A felony. This is a class B akin to second degree murder.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on. There, we're going to get to yours. So there we have. Hello. You can read this in your voice.
What am I reading? Apple River stabbing trial. Verdicts read and explained. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. That's fine. Okay. Hello. Talk.
Do you want me to read the others, or? Hey, folks, one more thought I wanted to add, actually, before I jump into the reading of the verdicts in court. And that is that given that this defendant, Nicolae Miu, had been charged with intentional homicide and intentional endangerment, but not convicted on those, convicted on the recklessness versions of those crimes. So recklessness, not intentional. And given that he'd raised the legal defense of self-defense, but not acquitted on the grounds of self-defense, instead convicted of reckless killing and endangerment, it strikes me that what might have happened here is precisely what I thought the state was going for when it did this late edition ambush of these recklessness charges after the parties did their closing arguments, but before the jury was formally instructed during the jury conference where the jury instructions were finalized. And that is hoping for a compromise verdict. So it's quite possible that these jurors decided, listen, we saw this guy attacked. We saw the hyenas. We saw the circumstances. We can't hold him 100% accountable. And these young people, 0% accountable for what happened there. They played a role. So we're not going to convict them of intentional homicide and intentional endangerment. On the other hand, we have a dead 17-year-old. We have 4 other young people stabbed, some gruesomely. We can't just let them walk out of here with nothing, that this is okay. We think this didn't have to happen. So we're not going to acquit him on self-defense. Instead, we're going to compromise, not convict him of intentional crimes, not acquit him on self-defense, but compromise in the middle on the recklessness criminal charges. Now, of course, we won't know that unless the jury tells us. The jury speaks to the media. Even if they do, they may not be willing to concede that it was a compromise verdict. Compromise verdicts are not really something that's supposed to happen, but jurors are human beings, and these are the kind of compromises that human beings sometimes make. That guy sounds pretty smart.
No bias there. Okay, so I appreciate that you went to the effort of explaining that you actually stopped your broadcast and included that little explanation before the reading of the verdict. So, okay, a compromise verdict, not what should happen, but what juries are sometimes inclined to do because they feel like you can't let someone walk out with nothing, as you said. Okay, so these comments, please, here, Dali.
Yeah, compromise equals life in prison. Horrible miscarriage of justice again. How is it legal to add charges that the defense didn't get a chance to argue against? Well, we discussed that. Why would the jury think this was a compromise when the counts of recklessness is a sentence between 40 to 60 years? Well, they probably didn't know that.
Yeah.
He is in his 50s, so he'll be coming out of prison in a body bag either way. Did the jury not know this verdict was basically the same thing in how many years? Yeah.
And then Branca.
It's me. The jury has no idea what the sentence is in most states, including Wisconsin. In fact, part of the jury instructions to the jury in this trial was don't even think about what the consequences of the verdict is. That's not your business. That's for the court to decide. So this jury has absolutely no role in sentencing. They have no idea what any... Am I muted?
No.
Okay,
I was just like throwing my hands up.
Yeah, the jury has no idea what first-degree homicide gets you, what reckless homicide gets you, what intentional endangerment gets you, what reckless endangerment gets you, what battery gets you. They have no idea what any of those sentences or the ranges are, what the fines are. Zero idea, and it's none of their business. Now, there are a few American states where the jury does play a role in sentencing. It's not common, and Wisconsin is not one of them.
Yeah.
So I find
except
that really
if you're in a capital punishment state, the jury always has to approve capital punishment separately. From the guilty verdict.
Yeah, that's actually a whole separate trial kind of. But like that's really problematic to me. So for them to be thrown a separate set of charges at the last minute and they don't even know what that means effectively is hugely problematic. Like, and if you're saying that this is a compromised verdict, or if it could be a compromised verdict, and they think they're giving him something lesser when really he's going to end up with life in prison anyway.
Right. So they may think they're doing him a favor. Some of those juries might have thought, well, I'm willing to compromise because otherwise he might get convicted of intentional. So let me give him a break and only convict him of this other effective life sentence.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Ridiculous. They should know. They should know what they're getting into. The jurors should know. Why shouldn't they know?
Just not how we do it.
Crazy. All right. And this. So I can't believe after the video of these Apple River thugs that a nursing home let them visit. Not if it was my family. So this must be the football team that they were on. Our players resumed nursing home bingo visits after 2 years of missing out due to COVID. Hashtag pony pride. Hashtag giving is receiving. So there's these dudes from the Apple River tubing incident. Well, most of them anyway. Visiting a
But I'm sure they were
home.
portrayed in their local media as innocent victims of some crazy lunatic on the river who was stabbing people.
Yeah.
And there's Rosie. Hey, Rosie, if you're watching. Rosie's a lovely member of our chat. Dali.
This is gross PR. Gross that they're clearly trying to clean up the public's perception of them. And as you say, that the nursing home let them in. Agree, but I'm sure their school thinks they didn't do nothing. Meanwhile, Nicolae Miu will spend life in prison because these losers thought it was fun to harass someone. It's easier mentally for the school, parents, and community to rewrite history and blame the big bad man. Shame about that pesky video immortalizing the truth.
Yeah.
I feel this verdict has not gotten enough attention to. I think that area of Wisconsin is conservative, so I'm surprised. Maybe the Jew roars are afraid of people with accents.
Like Wisconsin doesn't have accents.
Yeah.
As Sean just showed us, that was amazing.
Maybe. There's been a lot of negative press surrounding immigrants lately, so perhaps this factored into things. It's so sad as N.M. seems like a nice man who got into a bad situation.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems okay. Oh, okay. So we always have a bit of a look at TikTok. So let's have a little teensy bit of a look at TikTok, shall we?
Take a break. Just
How bad is it?
well, can we get through this form and ask each other questions?
Yes.
And if you don't want to answer questions right now, then that's fine too. And I will leave.
Sorry.
It's up to you.
All I can say, it was self-defense. Self-defense for a lot of people.
He didn't do too well
that
in this
came on to me.
interrogation, huh?
Self-defense, and they produced 2 weapons, one I took from them.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can tell. And they hit me, and they were on top of me, and I don't remember anything after that. I just remember I ran away. I ran away to my group. There were actually people coming over from my group to see what was going on. I said, nothing, just get back on. And they kept asking, and I said, nothing. I didn't explain to them anything because I was so fearful. I didn't know what these people were doing to us. I've never been in a situation like this where people produce weapons and they were saying they were calling don't. I don't remember, but they said, don't run away, don't run from us, don't do this, you're a child molester, you're this. And again, I said, are you people drunk? Or you're a child molester. I said, the only thing I remember is, in my mind is, if I'm a child molester, should you be drinking? Should you be drinking alcohol and doing what you're doing to people that you don't even know, attacking them? And I said, if I'm a child molester, you should be having alcohol.
Oh dear.
You know, and they took my. I was snorkeling, so
he
they
thinks
took
he's
my
being
snorkel
clever.
away. They threw it in the water.
Yeah.
They grabbed my pants. One wanted to pull my pants down, and I grabbed onto him. And I don't know who that kid was, but he had a knife on him. And then there was another knife, a longer knife, looked like a kitchen knife. Kitchen or something, I don't know. And I don't know what happened to either one of them. I just know that when the kid attacked me, I took that from him.
The kitchen knife or the other
No,
knife?
the smaller knife.
Okay, what did that knife look like? Do you
I
remember?
don't even remember.
But it was smaller?
Smaller, yes.
Okay.
This is not good.
So that's all.
How did you get to be by them? Or who are these people?
So Ariel lost his phone.
Okay.
The phone was in the floor.
One of those bags?
Yeah.
Okay.
And everyone had one, but his phone was in the floater, so he says, well, let's go look for it. So I put my snorkel on, and I looked, and this guy found something. And they were talking about it, and I said, okay.
This group of people?
This group of people,
gotcha.
yeah. I went over and I said, did you guys find the phone? And if you did, can I see it? Can I identify it? And they started calling me names. They got off of their tubes. They came at me. So I said, all I need. And they were calling me all kinds of names, insulting me for being in the water with a snorkel. And I said, all I want, guys, did you find the phone? And I saw they had found something. All right. And I don't know if there was a phone or something else they found, but they wouldn't talk to me about what they found. And we were looking desperately to find this phone. And I know somebody found it, but I thought it was that group.
Okay.
You know, and then they went over, they came to me and they grabbed my snorkel and they threw it in the water. Well, the water was so fast, it went under. So I went out after it, and they started, another group of mostly girls came over from the other side, yelling at me or calling me child molester and what something with something like that. And I went back. I actually after this incident, I don't even know what happened. I just know that they attacked me, and I was in self-defense. I went into self-defense mode, and then I went over to my group of people. That was it. And they asked me what happened, and I wouldn't tell them. I said, I can't tell you. Let me calm down.
Okay.
I was shocked. So nobody on that knew exactly what happened. The only thing they said, well, look, somebody got in an argument over there. Like,
wow.
Yep. Let's just leave that alone.
Don't talk to cops. God. Oh, it's so frustrating.
And if there was no video, I would say this was entirely would justify a guilty verdict because you couldn't trust anything he said about what happened. But let's imagine hypothetically that we have absolute evidence of a perfect case of self-defense. The defender did absolutely nothing wrong. Pristine case of lawful use of deadly force in self-defense. And then after that, he's questioned by the police and he lies his ass off for a variety of reasons. Maybe he's married and he was at his girlfriend's apartment when this happened. Maybe he's got outstanding felony warrants that he doesn't want discovered. Maybe he owes $100,000 in child support that he hasn't paid. Maybe there's lots of reasons why he might not want to be engaged by the system, right?
Yep.
But if you have that pristine evidence of self-defense caught on video, it's incontestable that it was lawful self-defense. All the lying afterwards doesn't matter. It doesn't change the actual act. The only time it's relevant is when the evidence of self-defense is that person's own self-serving statements. Then it goes to his credibility. for those statements. But if you have independent evidence that it was lawful self-defense, the later line is not material.
It shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter.
Juries
Right?
don't like it, though. Juries don't like it. All right. So, Dali, we have TikTok comments.
If it's self-defense, why lie in the first place about who had weapons? That also, if it was self-defense, why did he hit first? He could have walked away, but he chose to stay. Wrong.
That's not true.
He wanted to walk.
First.
Yeah, he wanted to walk away, but they all jumped him. Watch the video. Lies upon lies. This dude is sociopath, a killer, cold-blooded mass spray killer, sick SOB.
Oh, God.
Did people not see the start of the video? He came up to them and was touching their tubes, and then and he would not walk away.
He actually did walk away.
Yeah.
He did.
And they followed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
I did. In no way did they jump him, and in no way could he not have continued walking away the 3 times he started to, but chose to stay and sway.
Yeah, he stood his ground. All right, that's that. Thank you, guys. All right, so I'm going to be doing some different shows over the next week or so. Well, I'm going to start doing some different shows. New freeform shows starting Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. That's Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. They're called future streaming because, you know, when I stream, it's always the day after. So if it's Wednesday for you, it's Thursday. So you can have Thursdays on a Wednesday. How fun. And do you like my little Tirana DeLorean? Basically, in Australia, we have these things called Tiranas, and they're really cool, old-fashioned cars. But I turned it into a DeLorean, and it's got a little Australian flag on it. So yeah, I'm going to be doing some more just like streaming. You know how generally I really, really plan out all of my streams. I'm going to do that. I'm still going to be doing that. I'll still do my regular stuff, but I'm going to just hit go live, and I'm going to show you some things that are happening in Australia. There have been some interesting developments just in general court and crime here. I'm also just going to be commenting on some stuff that's happening in trials and things. People can come and jump on my stream. Different people, whoever wants to turn up and chat can come along and say hi. But yeah, I'm just gonna wing it for a bit. Be a little bit more cash. So that's going to start on Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Come along. Australia is not real, and it'll be fun. It's fun to pretend to be real. It's fun to pretend to be real. So you're going to be doing that. Why is the DeLorean yellow? Because Tiranas are yellow. You got to look up yellow Tirana, and you'll know what I mean. We call them Tories here in Australia. Why not? Indeed. Cool. So that's then. Now, also, we do this every Sunday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Today was a special one because we only focused on the one case, and there was plenty of stuff to talk about on that one. So thank you, everyone, for hanging out. Thank you to Potentially Criminal Sean. Thank you to Andrew Branca. Love having you guys here. It's so awesome to have professional opinions, and also just because you're awesome. Love you. You are great mates of the channel, and you're always welcome. There's always a link for you, no matter what we're talking about.
Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be here. Sean, great seeing you. Dolly, great seeing you. Hella,
you too,
of course, great seeing you. Have a great, what little is left of the weekend. Have a great one, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
My weekend's over. It's Monday morning. And become a member and join our salacious, outrageous Discord community. Excited Utterance and Salvador Dali Talk. We have a Discord together. So if you're a member of either of our channels, you have access to that. At least once a week, we have a member chat. So we get in there into our chat room or chill room or whatever it is, and we all just talk. So you can let your hair down, you can let your put your camera on, and you can chitty chat talk. Actually, you can do that all week if you want to, but we have one at least once a week when we're all in there And we have all sorts of fun. So come along and join. That's a member perk. But just come along and join, and you get whenever a stream goes live of either of ours, you get a really good notification, much better than the awful ones that YouTube gives you. So that's that. And that's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Ooh, let me just check something. What do you have going on, Mr. Sean?
We got George Kelly. We got to finish up his trial. We're getting caught up, but that's a big thing.
That's a big thing, is it?
Yes.
How far along into it are you?
We're all caught out except for Friday, and tonight, probably a little later tonight, probably around like 8 o'clock, we'll probably start him back up and catch up as much we can.
Okay, because I thought because you stopped it for a while, and
we stopped it, because Law and Crime quit covering it, and then I found out the court airs all the case, airs each day, but not till the end of the day.
Right. Okay.
They host it online,
So, but I don't know. I thought that there'd been a verdict, but no.
Not yet. They're not even close.
No. So how long is this trial going for?
It's supposed to have been over Thursday. Thursday was 3
over.
weeks. The judge was told 3 weeks, and he got really mad with everybody.
Wow.
And the state's supposed to not maybe finish on Friday, but it sounds like they weren't done yet, and then the defense still has to go. And he told them, no matter what, the jury is getting the case on Thursday.
No matter what.
Yes.
Okay. I've heard that before.
Yes,
Right.
But he also walked off the bench in the middle of the record. So
I saw that earlier. I was watching you guys earlier, and he just walked away and in the middle of a proper. That's so strange. Was he having a little hissy fit?
A little bit.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna redirect over to Runkle if he lets us. Hang on a minute.
I think he's the only one going.
Yeah, he is the only one going. So we're gonna do that. All right, let's do that. Why not? He's having a slap on the wrist for Hannah. Slap on the wrist for Hannah. That's what he's doing.
I'm covering the Hannah Gutierrez Reed sentencing tomorrow.
Oh, you are. That's right.
Eastern.
Have you got the link up
live?
No, it's going live earlier. I can.
Do you have a link up for it?
Yeah, just give me 1 sec.
Yes, please. Chuck it up there. Let's everyone have a look. Do you know what time you're going live with that?
5 p.m. Eastern.
Yay! 5 p.m. Eastern for Dali and the Hannah Gutierrez Reed sentencing. That should be interesting. We'll see everyone talk about how it was not their fault. But no, we'll hear from Helena Hutchinson's family.
Yeah.
Which will be quite sad. Yeah. There we go. Wonderful. All right. Let's go over there. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you, chat. Thank you for all the gifted memberships. Thank you, Mimsy, also for becoming a member. Thank you, Murph. Thank you, Snivels. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Branka. Thank you to my lovely co-host, Dali. Everyone, make sure you're subscribed to Dali. And everyone say EU Raid when you go over to Runkle. And I'll see you guys during the week. Have a wonderful one, everybody. See you.